Hi, this is Carla Atherton, Director of the Healthy Family Formula and host and producer of the Children's Health Summit. And I am so excited to be here with Cilla Whatcott, who is one of my heroes. I think that it's really timely that we do an interview right now for you. I have been doing a series of interviews with people who I think are really powerful and important voices in the world right now, especially with what we're facing with the whole COVID-19 scare that everybody is involved in every corner of the world. So I'm really excited to have her here. Cilla Whatcott is the founder of Worldwide Choice. She's also a homeopath. She is an advocate for homeoprophylaxis, which is what we're here to talk about today. She has a series actually, but here's the first one, Real Immunity. It's actually such an important film that I have put it into the curriculum. It's required viewing for my students, for my practitioner trainees, with their, people who are learning to be family health coaches, because this is integral to everything that I teach in my program. And she also has a couple of books that are, I have two of them. I don't even know if there are more, but there's a choice, Homeoprophylaxis, An Appeal to Mothers, and The Solution. So I have her here. We're talking about this really important issue of the immune system and how how homeoprophylaxis, what it is, how it works. So Cilla, welcome, and thanks so much for being here.
Oh, Carla, thank you for having me. I really appreciate being here.
Yeah, I love it. I love it when I put a call out to my community. I call you my peeps, my tribe, because it's people like you who respond so quickly and readily to people's needs and concerns and fears, and to really put a voice of reason out there. So I really appreciate your really quick response and getting here and getting this information to us. All right, so without further ado, let us discuss. I'm excited to discuss this. I haven't had a chance to do this with you for my community before, so I'm really excited. And so what I want to do is get your explanation of the immune system to get us rolling.
Okay, yeah, that's great. So much of this is repeated in the my most recent book, There Is a Choice, but I'm going to summarize it by saying, simply put, the immune system has two arms, Th1, Th2. Th1 is innate immunity, which is kind of the sentry guard. It's always watching out for cancer cells or infection going on and keeping things controlled. And it's actually supported by breastfeeding, very important, by welfare consciousness. Having a positive attitude really affects the innate immune system, and also by dirt and viruses. We've seen literature studies of children who grow up on farms where they're exposed to more dirt and animals. They have fewer cases of asthma, eczema, allergies. So that's the innate arm of the immune system. The Th2 arm of the immune system is responsible for producing antibodies. And it's basically sends out information to fight infection, so inflammatory information. And we know that allergists have known for a long time that vaccines can be a promoter of allergies and asthma because Th2 is emphasized with vaccine. Th2, the goal of vaccines is to create antibodies and to create that inflammatory response. So when you have an inflammatory response, you can see more cases of eczema, allergies, atopic illnesses, we call them. So those are the two arms, and we want a balance of those two things, basically. That's the healthy picture, to have a balance of Th1 and Th2. We don't want that skewed.
Okay.
So homeoprophylaxis does not create antibodies per se. That's not the goal of homeoprophylaxis. It really works on the innate arm of the immune system.
Okay.
So
in the case of a viral infection such as coronavirus, and in particular this strain COVID-19, how so what are we wanting to do there when we are facing a viral infection? So as far as homeoprophylaxis goes, how does that work to protect us?
So homeoprophylaxis is the process of familiarizing the system with the frequency of the disease prior to meeting it.
Okay.
And that can be done, it's based on homeopathic principle, but it's not classical homeopathy. So the principle is like treating like.
Okay.
And if we create, we develop homeoprophylaxis based on either some particle of the disease or animal, mineral, or vegetable substance that's been diluted and succussed homeopathically. So there are no molecules of the original substance, but you have a frequency. Mm-hmm. And that frequency introduced into the human organism familiarizes it with the frequency so that if you meet a disease in nature, you can either repel it or mount an appropriate immune response. So that's the premise of homeoprophylaxis. It's been used for 200 years around the world. India advocates it for its citizens, so the government doctors provide it. There have been many studies in Cuba because Cuba had a facility that creates, their research and development facility for vaccines called the Finlay Institute. And they also had a natural branch that created homeoprophylaxis. So there are studies coming out of Cuba where they've used it for dengue fever, for leptospirosis, for swine flu. An amazing study in 2010 with swine flu where they provided homeoprophylaxis to 9 million people. And it never hit them. They never had an outbreak of swine flu in Cuba. So they have some very successful studies, and these are all available to your listeners on my free knowledge vault. It's a knowledge vault with the studies. It's found on familyhomeopathicare.com, and they can go in there and look for the knowledge vault and simply go and download anything they want.
Oh yeah, I know. I've been in that knowledge vault. It's like being in part of your brain because I'm pretty sure there's a lot more in there. And I get in there, I'm like, whoa, there's a lot of stuff in here. Yeah, so anything you want to know about not just homeoprophylaxis, but homeopathy in general, plenty of information. So yeah, I think that'll cover us really for efficacy, which was my next question. I think that you kind of covered that, what the efficacy is. That you said that there's not an outbreak. Now, before we get into how you take it, I'm thinking at this point, people are wondering, what can I expect? What happens when I take homeoprophylaxis? Will I be immune? Will I never have symptoms? Will I, it's like taking a pill and I'll never get it. So what can people expect out of using this?
Yeah, first let me back up and just talk about the applications.
Okay, sure.
So we can use homeoprophylaxis in an epidemic, like a flu epidemic of any kind. We can also use it for travel, people going to countries where there's tropical disease. That's the second application.
Yep.
And the third application is with childhood illnesses. And all three have studies behind them.
Okay.
So those are the three applications. And depending on the application, there are different expectations. So if you're traveling to a foreign country and you want to protect against tropical disease, typically I meet with an individual and we discuss where you're staying, what are you eating, what are you drinking, who are you seeing, because all of those things matter. If you're camping in the outback and you're going to be exposed to the elements, it's going to be a different picture than if you're staying at a 4-star hotel in a city, you're going for a conference and then coming home. So common sense mostly, but people don't think about this. They just assume they need protection from all the diseases in a foreign country, which may or may not be really necessary. So we have a consultation that kind of goes through that and looks at what do you specifically need with what you're doing. So that's travel. And there's about a 90% effectiveness rate. So let me just distinguish also effectiveness compared to efficacy.
Okay.
Efficacy is what vaccines apply based on the production of antibodies.
Okay.
So they're looking
Okay.
at producing antibodies, and that creates efficacy. Effectiveness is, it can be a retrospective view. How many people did we protect? How many people caught the disease? How effective is our intervention? That's effectiveness. So we look at effectiveness with homeoprophylaxis. For tropical diseases, it's about 90% effective. So
Hmm.
it's important to understand that nothing is 100% effective. No vaccine, not homeoprophylaxis, nothing is 100%. People can always catch a disease.
Yes.
But what we see with HP across the board is about 90% in all areas. So the other application with childhood illness, that's being given with travel. You're taking one dose. It's going to cover you for 2 to 4 weeks. That's it. That's all you need. And one dose equals pellets, little pellets that you take, come in little vials, and they're sugar pellets. The frequency is anointed onto those sugar pellets with a liquid, and then it's dried. So you just put a few pellets in your mouth, and that's a dose. You're
Hmm.
good for 2 to 4 weeks, and you're done. So that's all that's required for travel. With childhood illnesses, and there's been a study on that out of Australia, a 15-year study with about 2,600 children. That's taken on a schedule. So that's taken monthly or every few weeks. It varies based on some different considerations, which we discuss when we meet as a family. And those responses are typically just a healthy immune response where we see maybe a longer nap or flushed cheeks or a shorter nap, very brief, very mild. Most parents say, I think I saw something, but I'm not sure. That's how mild it is. It lasts less than 24 hours, definitely. And then parents sometimes see a developmental leap, similar to seeing a developmental leap after illness. If your
Hmm.
child has chickenpox or a flu or a cold, you might see a leap after that. They start to crawl, they start to talk, some developmental skill moves forward. And we frequently see that parents report that with homeoprophylaxis when they're in the program. The
Hmm.
program itself lasts about 3 years, but can be shortened significantly. It involves 8 diseases, which are the same diseases that were used by Dr. Isaac Golden in his 15-year study,
Hmm.
and that can be adjusted for the family. So that's kind of a larger commitment, a bigger program. And on realimmunity.org, we offer those programs, and they include support for the entire period of time. So anything parents need to know, they have us there for support. It includes a video teaching them how to administer it so they can access that video as much as they want to remind, a
Hmm.
booklet to keep all your written notes in, and a 30-minute consultation with myself or one of the other practitioners to customize the program for them, ask individual questions, answer questions. So the support piece is very well thought out and applied in that program because it's a long program and it's your children. You want support, right?
Hmm.
So the third application with uh, epidemics, pandemics, is usually depending on the length of time of exposure. um, let's take a typical flu epidemic that lasts for the winter. So we have October to say March where flus are circulating.
Okay.
You would take that remedy 1 to 4 times a month depending on your exposure. So if you're in your house, you're not going out, you're not exposed to large groups or people who are sick, once a month could be adequate. If you are out and about, you could take it once a week. That would be 4 times a month. When I fly in the winter, I take Influenzinum always because
Hmm.
I'm going to be exposed. I'm on a flight. So that's the application in a flu epidemic. So with Isaac Golden, who's one of the world's leading authorities for homeoprophylaxis, we consulted briefly about what might be appropriate for this particular pandemic.
Hmm.
And he had some input, which I utilized and have something available, which could be taken weekly.
Yeah.
basically.
Hmm.
Um,
Okay.
so my train of thought. You have a question
Yeah,
for
yeah,
me?
I do actually. Okay, so my question. Okay, so you're taking, so people are actually taking it, 2 to 4 every, like, so often within the month or while they're being exposed. So my question is that so this differs from actual natural immunity, from when people are actually exposed to the wild disease and they develop their immune system, develops an immunity to that particular strain, hopefully for life, sometimes not always. But this is different. It's not actually educating the immune system in that forever. It's just sort of temporary.
So we don't know the answer to that
Okay.
question completely, how long it lasts. We know from Isaac's study, his 15-year study, that after dosing on that protocol, children are good for about 5 to 10 years afterwards.
Mhm.
So because we're exposing people to the frequency of the disease, it's not the material disease. When you're
Yeah.
exposed to a material disease, that's real herd immunity. You can develop antibodies. In the circumstance with homeoprophylaxis, you're exposed to the frequency.
Hmm.
So you can recognize it, and it's exercising your immune system similarly to getting a natural disease. But we don't know how long exactly that's going to last.
Okay.
So that's why it can be repeated.
Okay. So now my question is, and I wasn't even planning to ask you this. So will it interfere with herd immunity with that process of?
Oh, no, actually, Carla, the interesting thing, it creates a type of herd immunity in the morphogenic field,
Okay.
because in Cuba, when they did the leptospirosis study, they found that the effects extended outside of the group where they were using it. They gave it to 2.3 million people in one area. But what
Wow.
they found at the time is that people outside that area were reflecting some natural immunity. So,
You
you
know,
know, we're
that 2.4 million people. I mean, we don't have studies like that. And like we don't have that kind of information for any other way of handling such a pandemic. Like any evidence like that you're talking about, 2.4 million
right.
people. And if you've got none of, like, there's no pandemic happening in that area. I mean, that's amazing evidence.
Amazing. So in 2010, for swine flu, they gave it to over 9 million people and it never hit. So they conjectured, we don't know, we think it worked, but it never came here. Maybe there was another reason it never came
Yeah.
here, but if it's a pandemic, it's everywhere.
Hmm.
So yeah, so in answer to your question about herd immunity, I think it creates its own type of herd immunity,
Yeah.
which is why I'm so passionate about um, getting it out there to see what's going to happen when enough parents are doing this or individuals are doing this. So it's an interesting question. But
Yeah.
in India, they had one study with 10 million people for Japanese encephalitis. So yeah, it's been used very widely.
Huge.
Absolutely.
We're not talking 10 people. We're going to try this trial with 10 people with the same set of circumstances. We're talking about an entire
Right.
population of 9 million, 2.4 million. Yeah.
Right, because we have to ask ourselves, what's a good study? You
Yeah.
know, the medical community says double-blind placebo-controlled study. That's all there
Right.
is.
Right.
Yet vaccines are not double-blind placebo-controlled at all.
No.
So they don't have a placebo control. So a good study involves a lot of people. You want an N larger than 100,
Mhm.
basically, right?
Mhm.
It involves many kinds of studies, retrospective, um, questionnaires, prospective studies, cohort studies, different studies that are all showing the same results.
Yeah.
You want something that is replicated. You want something that persists over time. Homeoprophylaxis really fulfills all of these. There's very few double-blind placebo-controlled studies. There's one out of Brazil with Influenzinum, where
Mhm.
they used only 600 people. It was a very small study, 600 children. But that is double-blind placebo-controlled. The rest of them are mostly retrospective studies. where they do something for a huge segment of the population and then they assess what happened.
Yeah.
And, you can find in the Knowledge Vault the leptospirosis study where between 07, 08, 09, they saw leptospirosis drop precipitously to zero. So they no longer have a problem.
Wow. Amazing. And this is pretty simple too. I mean, a lot of studies, there's so many variables and, the set of people, like what are the circumstances for all those people? And when you see a result like, okay, this is the homeoprophylaxis, it doesn't have a whole bunch of different ingredients, right? Like we don't have a very confused, set of inputs. And then we've got this outcome of, okay, no disease. Like it's really it's easier to track. I'm thinking, you can kind of see the results quite quickly or quite clearly, I suppose.
Right. Well, it has no excipients. It has no medium that's grown on. It has no antibiotics. It has no adjuvants, which force Th2 of the immune system to create antibodies. It has none of that. So it's completely harmless. You cannot hurt someone with homeoprophylaxis. There are no injuries. There are no deaths. It's easy. And in terms of epidemics, when you're working with third world countries, developing countries, it can be distributed very easily. There's no cold chain needed. It can be distributed by non-professionals because there's no needles required. Same dose, male, female, children, adults, even species. You can put it in animals' water supply. So, and it also is effective for mutating viruses because we know viruses are dynamic, they'll mutate.
Yes.
And homeoprophylaxis addresses that because it's about like treating like. So if the symptom picture is similar, it's going to apply. So
yeah.
It's amazing. I came to it, Carla, after my own daughter had a serious vaccine injury. She contracted aseptic meningitis after getting vaccinated. She survived, but that caused me about 22 years ago to start investigating. And I went down a deep rabbit hole, did lots of investigation. When I came upon homeoprophylaxis, I was amazed because I felt like this is the answer parents are looking for. Definitely.
Yeah. And a lot of people are looking for answers, and I appreciate that you ran down who can take it and its safety, because those are my next questions. Like, because usually when we're talking about something that we're introducing into our bodies, everybody wants to know, is this safe versus, and so we talked about the effectiveness as well as the safety. So children, and actually it's really highly encouraged for children, right? So homeoprophylaxis
Absolutely, because remember, we're exercising the immune system.
Yeah.
So teaching it how to move through the process on its own. There's one population that I would urge caution with, and that is individuals who have chronic disease and are highly suppressed. So let's say you have asthma and you've been doing corticosteroids and inhalers daily for 10 years. You are very suppressed. Your symptoms have been pushed down for survival for whatever reasons. And doing homeoprophylaxis, you really need to get on a more balanced level with your immune system before you would do something such as homeoprophylaxis. So if I have children come into the program who are heavily suppressed, I always recommend to the parents, let's do some classical homeopathy first, get them in a healthier place, then do homeoprophylaxis.
And how
that's the only population.
Only population. Okay. And what do you mean? How do you mean suppressed? You mean medically suppressed, like where the symptoms have been dealt with medically to suppress them? Okay. Yeah.
Just to shut them down. Right.
Got it. Yeah, got it. All right. So, can you take it if you're already sick? Will that help?
So are we, not necessarily, so if we're referring to HP for an epidemic, like a flu epidemic.
Yes.
Once you contract the flu, then we would individualize the case and look at what are your symptoms. Maybe your symptoms are headache and fever. The next person's symptoms might be cough and vomiting. They're two different pictures. We're going to give two different remedies. So once you contract the disease, it's best to stop the HP and then have a homeopath help you with what specific remedies do you need?
Okay.
And let me add this, Carla, because it's important. Homeoprophylaxis is not classical homeopathy.
Right.
Classical homeopathy waits till someone gets sick. And what's used within classical homeopathy is called a system called genus epidemicus. It's an excellent system. It's very effective.
Mm-hmm.
We're using it right now with COVID-19. And it's a process of gathering cases, positive cases, seeing what the common symptoms are amongst those cases, and then seeing which remedies address those common symptoms so that we come up with maybe 5 or 10 remedies. We share that amongst homeopaths worldwide, and then we see a case and we've already differentiated down to these 10 remedies instead of 4,000 remedies that we use.
Yes.
So it can more quickly be distributed. And we know that in the Spanish flu, 1918, they used genus epidemicus, and the mortality rate was 1% with homeopathy compared to 30% with conventional medicine, which was using aspirin to suppress fever at that time.
So the
So
1% isn't necessarily from, it's not from the homeopathy, it's from the actual disease. The one, like that's not dying because of homeopathy, it's dying because of the disease that it couldn't quite address. Yeah. Okay, yeah, I want to make sure that was clear. Okay, so you mentioned fever. That's one of the symptoms that's, a top symptom, and people are being advised to take Tylenol and ibuprofen to suppress fever and reduce inflammation. So can you please address the role of fever in an illness? I'm going to leave it at that.
Yeah, so fever is super important. It's our body's natural defense that burns off bacteria. Viruses can't survive in high temperatures. It's effective, and it's scary for parents, but it's pretty much a non-issue for children. They forget all about it after it's passed. And people will always ask me, what number should they worry about? 102, 103, 104. And I always say it's not about the number, it's about vitality. I've seen children with 105 fever who are drinking, having wet diapers, communicating. They're fine, but they have an enormous fever. So it really depends on their vitality. And as a parent, by looking in your child's eyes whether they're lagging or whether they have vitality. So we look at that instead of the number itself. And then instead of suppressing a fever, because those pharmaceutical medications suppress fever, we've seen in the literature that they also reduce the body's natural production of glutathione.
Yes.
Which helps to heal.
And other nutrients, yes.
Mm-hmm. Right, and we're seeing that more and more. So that's the information coming out. Using homeopathy supports the body's process in a fever. Mm-hmm. So a famous remedy to use is belladonna.
Yep. And
belladonna has been vilified in the news as something poisonous. But again, I have to say that there's no molecule of belladonna in a homeopathic remedy called belladonna. Yes. It's only energy. So if you give belladonna during a fever, it can support the body's process in fevering, yet bring the fever down. Mm-hmm. You can get it from your co-op, belladonna 30C. You can put a dose in water and you can stir it and give the child a teaspoon every 15 minutes to try and bring a fever down. Mm-hmm. It's very supportive, very effective. The other thing you can do is calcium lactate. Mm-hmm. So calcium lactate is a supplement, and you can find it online. You can find it in health food stores. It's a powder or a tablet or a capsule. You can mix it in water, juice, milk, and the calcium lactate provides calcium because when a fever rises quickly, the muscles, there's a shortage of calcium, and the muscles will try to leach calcium from the bones and they'll spasm, and this is a febrile seizure. So they're trying to get calcium from the bone. So if you supplement with calcium lactate, you can help support the fever. It can bring down the fever. It can prevent, something like a febrile seizure, which again is scarier for the parents. It's not typically not damaging. It's a one-time event, but it's very scary. So you want to avoid that.
Yeah.
Calcium lactate can do that.
Calcium lactate. Awesome. I actually had never heard of that. So that's a new one for me. Thanks, Cilla. All right. So fever is your friend. The knowledge fault.
Fever is your friend. Yeah, the calcium lactate. So you can see there's another little method. I've forgotten about this one, is the warming socks method. Are you familiar with that?
Yes. Yes. So go ahead, explain it.
It's great. Yeah, you simply make sure your child's warm, like after a warm bath. So you want their skin warm, their body warm. Dampen socks, wring them out really well, warm water. Put the damp socks on their feet, cover them with dry socks, bundle them up, put them to bed. The body brings the heat down out of the head. I've seen parents work with ear infections, chest infections, fevers. It helps to bring it down. The child sleeps really well.
I love this toolkit. I love it. I love having a toolkit where people feel like parents, this is always my goal, is for parents to feel empowered that they can do something. There's always something at their fingertips, like a practice like this that's free, the warming socks method, or, letting a fever ride, just watching it, being cognizant of, their child's vitality. And knowing when to step in and when to kind of let the body do its work, and how to step in, good nutrients, like, the soup broth and all of that stuff that grandma taught us, or maybe didn't, I don't know, maybe, so I think that that's very empowering. And using something like homeoprophylaxis that works with the body, this is what we want, is that we can't replicate the natural processes of the body. We can try to sort of support, but anytime we ever really interfere, we create imbalance, So what I love about homeopathy is the potential to support a balanced body. And it's much more gentle. It's something, when we talk about it, it's not like a cure or it's like, sometimes it doesn't happen for a while, but sometimes it can be very profound and the effects really happen very quickly. And I'll give you one example. I have to tell you that I have a cupboard full of homeopathy because I've been dabbling in it myself. And, I'm, of course, we would advise here that if you need extra support, it would be great to work with a homeopath. But if you don't have that, that option at this point, and you have a child with a fever, belladonna, you can try something like belladonna and not create, make anybody sicker. And so I've used, and I actually believe it was belladonna when my niece was quite a lot younger, and she had a fever at our house, and we're just riding it out, and nobody's really worried because we're very used to flu-like symptoms now, right, in our society, until now, right? So now everybody's afraid of COVID-19, but I don't know what, she must have had the flu. And I gave her, I was wondering, what do I do? And I have all these books, and I've taken courses, and just trying to figure out which remedy it is. And so I believe it was belladonna. She was listless, kind of like, just really like not feeling great. And I wanted to help her with that fever, because the fever makes you feel terrible. And I had her sipping it every 10 minutes. And we use the drops, right? Because you can get them as a pellet or as a drop that's sort of like, it's an alcohol base, but it's like tiny drops in water. So you don't get a lot of alcohol in there. And literally, within half an hour, that kid like sprung up off the couch, and she and my daughter was like in a steamy bathroom, showering with their towels on their heads in the mirrors and making goofy faces. She was like, it was like, I've never seen anything like it. So and I've seen a lot of stuff go really deep and really profound. And so there's so many applications of homeopathy. And one of these, the homeoprophylaxis, is just really one of my favorites. We used it for my son when he traveled to Africa. That was our choice, and that's where you and I started to work together a little bit, actually. So thank you for that. And so is there any other, anything else you'd like us to know regarding homeoprophylaxis before we bust off? I think we talked about there are no side effects. There are short-term and long-term effects. Like we already talked about all the things I wanted to ask you. So is there anything you'd like to add, Cilla?
I think it's important to understand that, people who want to be self-reliant, homeopathy is so great because these remedies never expire. As long as they're kept in a safe place, away from high heat, away from essential oils, they never expire. I have remedies from 25 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And from the time I started using homeopathy, my children never had an antibiotic after that. It just wasn't necessary because there are so many effective methods within homeopathy. I would urge people to consider a professional homeopath because, if you're out of your depth, you really want a professional, and they can go to homeopathicdirectory.com,
Mm-hmm.
and that site has every state, and you can look for people who are certified, and that means the CCH after their name, and they're well trained. Homeopaths go through 3 to 4 years of schooling, postgraduate work, another 3 to 4 years of schooling, and then they're lifelong learners. So it's really not something you can master in a weekend of courses or reading a book. It's a deep dive.
Yeah.
You can treat minor things at home very easily: fevers, wounds, vomiting, ear infections. But for deeper healing, you really need a professional homeopath. So I just urge people to reach out. Many homeopaths work remotely, so you don't need to be right in their vicinity, especially now when we're quarantined. They'll work by Skype or other means, so remotely.
Yeah.
It's safe, it's empowering. That's why I made the films. I wanted to empower parents
Oh yeah.
because I saw how they were affected by media, mostly thinking if there's a cough or a sneeze, boom, you've got to run to the ER.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not how
Yeah.
life happens. We have an immune system that's miraculous.
Mm-hmm.
It's designed to deal with many things, as I know because that's what your book is all about.
Yes.
And we can do it. So I just urge people to really take time, do some learning, and find out for yourselves how much homeopathy can be helpful. So
I love it.
lots of information on realimmunity.org. And then the Knowledge Vault and some classes are on familyhomeopathicare.com.
Okay. And if you just look up Cilla Whatcott, I think .com, it has all of your websites. So you click over to Real Immunity, you click over Worldwide Choice, you click over to Family Homeopathy. So all of those are there. They just have to click through. I just wanted to ask you really quickly, because you mentioned something, if you have to keep them away from essential oils. I did not know that. Tell me.
Yeah. Strong odors can antidote remedies. So Bengay, icy hot, essential oils, that strong mentholated smell can antidote remedies. So
Right.
I tell parents, if you use essential oils, that's fine. Separate the use from homeopathy so there's no smell. So parents may start with essential oils, and then if they're not getting somewhere, they want to try homeopathy. Discontinue that so the smell is gone, and then use homeopathy. Or if you're taking HP, do it outside of using essential oils.
Okay.
And don't store them in the same cabinet.
I have them in the same cabinet.
If they're still working, then good for, lucky. You're lucky. But
okay,
be cautious.
I'm going to take them out of there. That is terrible. Okay, I'm glad you mentioned that because okay. And I have a lot of homeopathy, so I don't want to be antidoting anything. Okay, thank you.
Right.
And so we know how to contact Cilla. And also, how do people get your, the homeoprophylaxis that you call, I can't remember actually what the name is.
Influenzinum CV.
Influenzinum CV. Okay, so they
right.
think it's
circulating viruses.
Yeah.
So that's on realimmunity.org.
Okay, realimmunity.org, and then I think you say there's a shop button, and then it has that as an option that you can order it if you'd like to use homeoprophylaxis in your preventive toolkit. Okay, so thanks so much, Cilla, for being here with us and giving us that wonderful description interview. I really appreciate your time, and you have a really wonderful day.
Thank you, Carla. Thanks very much.
Thanks for all your work.